I do want to talk about the coup in Gabon, because Ali Bongo and his father, they are an interesting couple of thieves. Ali Bongo and Omar Bongo. He wasn't always Ali Bongo, by the way. He only became Ali Bongo after his father converted to Islam. He used to actually be the dictator that was just overthrown. He used to actually be a musician. I don't know if you guys knew that. He actually had a little jazz group that was managed by the previous manager of, I believe it was Ray Charles. No, it was James Brown. And he had some James Brown backup dancers on this backup band, his backup band. See, Ali Bongo was not raised in Gabon, really. He went overseas to France and to China and other places to study because his father was a very corrupt kleptocrat. And him being a very corrupt kleptocrat, what do you do with your children? You send them overseas to get an overseas education, whether it be in economics or otherwise. But his son, Ali Bongo, or at the time, Alan Bongo, was more interested in music and performance, and it wasn't only until, I think, like the 1980s that he eventually made him agree to try to, get involved in government. He originally became a diplomat, but after becoming a diplomat, a few years into it, they raised, like, the amount of age you had to be, like how old you had to be a diplomat, to 35, and he was 32, so he became a defense minister. Now, what does he know about being a defense minister? Absolutely nothing. But he was the country's defense minister until his father died in 2009. He then ran for election for the presidency, won almost certainly with fraud because no one even saw him as a serious contender, and then he was president since about 2009 until he was recently overthrown after, using the whole country like a piggy bank, just like his father did, with luxurious cars, luxury, beds, and, living the high life. In fact, his father used to be considered one of the richest people off in the world. I mean, Gabon is a very wealthy nation. It has a lot of timber. I think it's the 8th largest oil producer in sub-Saharan Africa, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's like, I think, 180,000 barrels a year. But when you're talking about a population of 2 million people, that is significant. But the people have seen none of that wealth. All of that wealth has been funneled off by Omar Bongo, Ali Bongo, and his family. And let me tell you something. If I'm being for real with you, I don't think that's going to change. Because the guy who overthrew him is actually his cousin. And I haven't seen a lot of the Western press talking about this. The guy overthrew him. It's a whole family affair. People don't know. People are saying this is the end of the Oscar. I mean, like the family dynasty there, but I don't buy it, man. His cousin overthrew him. I think it's gonna have the same trimmings of the previous regime. The only thing that I think might change it is if the opposition organizes enough to actually push the government to move over to a transfer of power to civil administrators, which I don't think is gonna happen, or they ride a wave of discontent with the Bongo reign in order to change how they're managing the country. Don't think either's gonna happen. Anyway, that's enough of this. But that's fun music, isn't it? Do. I thought my family events were crazy. Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy over there. I want to do a segment on it. That wasn't a segment. I just wanted to run through a lot of the facts with you guys because we're about to do the thing with Mercado Media. But actually, while we have a moment, I will say that Ali Bongo, even though his popularity is in the can, no one really likes him anymore amongst the general population, he made a call from being deposed, from his house arrest, for people to make noise. Let's watch it. Also, there's been a lot of questions about his health ever since there was this health scare about a stroke in 2018 that he's been trying to push back upon, to not much effect. The only reason I mentioned that is I think that's part of the reason why I think a lot of his opposition thought he was weak enough to strike.
Ondimba, president of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence and nothing happening. Nothing is happening.
Yeah, he does not sound like he has control of the situation. I mean, this does not even look, he's not projecting any authority. Honestly, and most people, I think, who I've seen that know anything about the situation seem to be repeating the sentiment. It seems like it's more like a call for his backers internationally to support him. Because most of the pushback against the coup, none of it's come domestically. Probably maybe some people in Bongo's inner circle, but most of the opposition come from overseas. Russia, China, the United States, the European Union, regional actors, everybody is condemning the coup in principle, but they're not saying they're going to do anything about it. And I don't think they are going to do anything about it. Because I think they're condemning the coup because they don't want to inspire more instability in the region. And in principle, they don't want to endorse that type of behavior because it might threaten their own regimes, definitely if you're talking a lot of the neighboring countries. But most people know why this happened. It happened because this guy was a kleptocrat. His father was a kleptocrat. Their family dynasty ruled the country for 56 years. Most people in Gabon are under the age of 20. That means the majority of people in Gabon, the vast majority of people in Gabon, have known no other rule than kleptocratic, corrupt rule of the Bongo family. That's it. That's all they've ever known. And so when this election came up, people expected violence. The last two elections, there were violence after the results because no one believed it. And there was a lot of accusations of voter fraud that were probably true. I mean, the Bongo people did not let in anybody to monitor the election. No international independent media monitors. So they were almost certainly rigged. Definitely considering the amount of discontent against his rule. But going into 2023, he just didn't have, I guess, a strong enough control of the country to go through another election, rig another election, and survive. Funnily enough, though, the person who was his undoing wasn't like some far off like opposition like leader who stormed the Capitol or something. It was the head of his presidential guard. Tell me if that rings any bell. Niger. My goodness. The head of presidential guards. People across Africa. Regimes and presidents across Africa must be speculating on how they can reform their military right now to stop this type of stuff from happening. Because that's two heads of presidential guards overthrowing their governments within 5 weeks of each other. This one, I believe it's Nguema. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry, I'm very bad. I'm not fantastic at name pronunciation that are English, let alone name pronunciation of other people. Yeah, it's Nguema. Now, the thing that's interesting about Nguema is he was an aide to Ali Bongo's father, and then he was the head of presidential guard for Ali Bongo. And he was with the family through a coup that happened 3 years ago. And he stood with them and they cracked down on the coup leaders. And so this is somebody that had stood by Ali Bongo in the fast, that was an aide to his father, and is a member of his family. He's his cousin. So he probably wasn't expecting this whatsoever. Again, this was a brutal family affair. I would hate to go to the next family reunion. It's going to be very, very awkward. But that's also why I don't think anything's going to change in Gabon. I mean, I can bring the face of the guy up quick. The guy who's going to be ruling the country for a bit, but I don't think anything's really going to change because this guy is also corrupt. He has also benefited from the oil and gas corruption that the state engaged in. He has multi-million-dollar homes in the United States. You do not get those multi-million-dollar homes by just, he made some really above-board business investments. He engaged in the type of corruption the rest of the Bongo family did. The reason why you're going to see a lot of support for this on the streets, like look at this, see people all among the streets like celebrating this coup, isn't because like, oh, they know that this is going to bring real change and people are like actually going to, see their mineral wealth go back to them. They just want change. That they've had the Bongo dynasty for 56 years, and this is an opportunity for change. Odds are there's not going to be much change. What I mean by that is, I think there's still going to be a lot of corruption. There might be a tiny bit of reforms here or there. They might try to ride the discontent a little bit. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm just speculating here. But considering that the people who engage in this coup are deeply embedded with the Bongo family political line, political groups, they're deeply embedded in the nation's elite. They're deeply were embedded in the corruption that Bongo and his father was engaged in. I don't know why they would change their business strategy. If they raise a wave of, if they ride or raise a wave of discontent, maybe. But that is putting a lot of hope in these coup leaders. A lot of hope in people who have already shown that they are willing to engage in corruption. I will say, though, I'm not the only person with concerns about how this is going to mean for Gabon in the long term. In fact, the opposition is lambasting the coup and claiming election victory. They're saying that, like the last bunch of elections that were happening in Gabon, just like how it always was in Gabon, the election was rigged, and that they won the election, and that Ali Bongo lied about the election results, and the opposition leader is now the true leader of Gabon. So the opposition is already contesting who's actually in charge of the country. They're saying that the coup leaders need to immediately transfer power over to the real leader, which is the opposition. So it's still shaky on the ground. The opposition does not agree with who's in charge right now. They obviously believe they're the real winners. They participated in the election. If Ali Bongo didn't win and it was a fraudulent election, then, well, who won? It was probably them. And so they're going to be focusing on trying to make sure that this control goes back from the military, back in civilian hands, and I think the opposition obviously wants to take power. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. I don't know if this military is going to transfer over to civilian rule. We're still in the early stages of this coup. As of right now, we're still waiting for the military to describe their game plan on if they're going to transfer the power over to the civilian military and when they're going to transfer civilian rule and when they're going to do that. The international community seems to be encouraging that, but I would not hold my breath. Okay, there we go. I talked about the Bongos.